Hello. So this video is a performance review of the State College Community Theater's production of Ken Ludwig's The Games Afoot, directed by Carrie Clancy Burns. So, first off, I will say I am not a huge fan of Ken Ludwig. I recognize that his stuff is really, really popular, at least with community theaters. I've seen, I think, 3 of his shows. They're fine. They're not to my taste. There's a line in a play that I'm currently rehearsing for, Rehearsal for Murder by D.D. Brooke. The playwright, Alex Dennison, refers to the play he's written as a little commercial comedy. Right? That's what I think of Ken Ludwig's work as being. Maybe that's a little bit unfair, maybe it's a little bit dismissive, but I feel like the plays are funny in a sort of very conventional comedy way, but there's not that much substance to them. So I'm not a huge fan. So The Games Afoot. The premise of this play is that William Gillette, who's a very successful actor, well, I say successful. He's successful in that he has written a show that has been very long running, and he's made a lot of money doing that show. It's a Sherlock Holmes play. So he is in it. Felix and Madge Giselle are in it. Felix is William's best friend. They go back a long ways. Madge is Felix's wife. Simon Bright is in it. And Daria Chase is in it. Daria and William had a romance, but... So the first scene is a part of their play, and at the end of that opening bit, that meta-theatrical bit, William is shot. Subsequently, we open on William's house, and he has invited all of these people over for a party, along with his mother, Martha Gillette. Aggie Wheeler is the other person in the play. Sorry, my brain stopped working for a second there. Daria Chase is a theater critic, newspaper gossip columnist type figure who has in the past said bad things about pretty much everybody in this group. So Aggie and William had been a couple, but by the time we get to the party that William is giving, having now mostly recovered from his gunshot wound, Simon and Aggie have gotten married. There is a lot of tension, in part because William has been trying to figure out who shot him. And this has sort of... He's withdrawn largely from society. He's doing investigation. And there are these sort of continual, hey man, you're not really Sherlock Holmes. You just play him on stage type moments. There's a series of quirky events. Daria Chase is brought in. Again, everybody except William hates her. And so there's any number of suspects for who might have done it when Daria is stabbed to death at the end of Act 1. William finds her body. His mom, Martha, then confesses to the murder. She gets all hopped up on sleeping pills, so that makes the rest of her bit somewhat unreliable, which becomes a source of comedy. But William conscripts Felix into helping him try to hide the body. As they are in the midst of doing that and struggling to do that in this very sort of slapstick comedy way, Inspector Goring shows up. So now they have to navigate this police officer being here as they're trying to hide this body and come up with their story for what happened to Daria Chase when people start asking. So they're going through all of that. And they sort of slowly come around to this realization that, so they think it was Simon who killed Daria. They also think it was Simon who killed Aggie's previous husband, leaving her very wealthy, so that Simon could then go in and marry her. And they think that it was Simon who shot at William, but actually was shooting at, that Simon had somebody shoot at William, but actually So their theory is that Simon had somebody shoot at Aggie, and that person missed and hit William. The working theory being that Simon wanted to kill Aggie so that he could have all of the money for himself. What we find out at the end of the play, spoilers if this is a concern for you, is that Simon and Aggie had both worked together, and then Simon kind of betrayed Aggie to try and kill her off so he could go and be with his ex, who he actually still loved. In response to this, Aggie turns the tables and tries to kill Simon. They both get arrested, and then it's revealed that actually, surprise, even though they thought that Martha had been cleared, because she had said she tried to poison Daria, and it didn't work because Daria didn't drink the poisoned tea. And so William concluded then that his mother was innocent, but then she comes down in the last seconds of the play and says, "Oh, I better wipe my fingerprints off the knife that killed Daria." And there we go. So it's fine. Plot-wise, it's fine. It's okay. There's a lot of quoting of Shakespeare. And I love Shakespeare. But boy, does it feel heavy-handed. Like, okay, Ken, we get it. You're a theater person. You can quote Shakespeare. Right. There's so much of it. Like, if it were just done on occasion, fine. But it's so continuous. You just have these characters, like, go into these monologues, and they often will, like, one character will do one line, and another character will do a subsequent line, and they'll back and forth. It's like, why? Stop doing this. I know that these are supposed to be actors, but Jesus Christ. Oh, theater people, please, you don't always need to set your murder mysteries in theaters. It doesn't always need to be actors. I know you love doing it. I know you think actors are interesting. I don't know. Maybe not, probably not everyone else feels that way. Personally, I'm a little bit sick of it. If you're writing a sort of bog standard murder mystery or murder mystery comedy, you don't need to set it in a theater or with actors on a movie set, any of that kind of stuff. You don't need to do it. Find a different thing to do with it. Anyway, that's enough of that. I'm done complaining for this video. So let's talk about the actual production, the SCCT production. So there are several actors in it who were excellent, people who are consistently excellent. Brandon Smith, Heidi Cole, love them to death. I've worked with them before. I love working with them. I'd work with them again in a heartbeat. Brandon played Simon Bright, and Heidi played Madge Giselle. Really, really, really good. Jared Keller, I've never gotten to work with, but he's also really, really amazing. I've seen him in a number of things. He played Felix Giselle, excellent performer in whatever he's in. I don't know if I've seen Quinn Doherty in stuff before. He played William Gillette, but he was very, very good. His face is very expressive. Brandon's face is very expressive as well. So that's one of the things that they're very, very good at. Jared has great timing. And that's one of the things he's good at. And Heidi is so funny. She's she's really, really good at big emotions, especially things like indignation, rage, and these sort of over-the-top displays of emotion that make her very, very, very funny. Cassandra Portman and Abby Fleming, who played Aggie Wheeler and Daria Chase, respectively. Again, I don't remember specifically having seen them in things, but I may have done. They were quite good. That said, the production as a whole, I don't think was the strongest production I've ever seen. Part of that might be that I went opening night, and oftentimes opening night is a little bit rocky. There's stuff that you're, for one reason or another, not incredibly comfortable with. And so there was the early portion of the show, the first third of the show or so, did not feel like the cast had real great chemistry. Things felt very sort of mechanical, and then by about the first third or so of the show, they really sort of settled more into their rhythm, and everything became much more natural, much more believable, much more pleasant to watch. So that first portion was a bit rough. There were some technical issues with the production. Part of the problem with Games Afoot is that it requires a hidden room. And the thing for that is there's a sort of rotating mechanism where a bookshelf turns to reveal a secret room, which means if you want to put the show on, you've got to build that. And it didn't work that well. I'm sure it's an incredibly difficult thing to build, so I'm not really faulting SCCT for this. But it didn't work that well. It did rotate, so it did sort of open, but it was very, very jerky, and it didn't seem all that stable. Part of the thing is the Bowl Barn, the place where this show was performed, is not a great space for building sets. The floors are not even. You can't actually attach anything to the floors. So anything that is set up, and we've had this problem with Sock and Buskin, anything that is set up has to be stable on its own. This thing did not look stable. Also, the stairs that they built a very long staircase, and I was concerned. I talked to Heidi afterwards, and she said she was concerned going up and down the stairs because they did not look stable. And then there were other sort of bits and pieces, smaller things, like the way that they decided to stage Daria's death was they had a knife that was supposed to be stabbed into Daria's back. And what they did was they slid it. So the back of her dress sort of had a scoop shape. I don't know if that's the right term, but it has a scoop shape in the back. And so they just sort of slid the knife in between her dress and her skin. Part of the problem was that she also had a microphone pack in that same spot, which meant that the dress itself actually, there was a gap between the dress and the skin where the knife was supposed to sit. And so, during her very long death sequence, it was a comic death sequence. It wasn't like she was hamming it up or anything. This is what the show called for. But during that very long death sequence, the knife fell out of her dress. And William Quinn Doherty then subsequently had to sort of pretend that the knife was there, or there was a stab wound or something. And Heidi had mentioned this to me that that was the first time they had practiced that scene with that knife. So I don't know. There were things about the production I didn't think were amazing. And there was one actor, I'm not going to mention the name, but there was one actor who felt like they dropped quite a lot of lines, or forgot their lines, or whatever it was. And it's possible that this was a sort of, oh, this is a bumbling character type performance choice, but to me, as an audience member, it very much felt like someone has forgotten their lines and everyone is just sort of standing around waiting for that person to remember. So yeah, that wasn't the smoothest thing in the world either. Again, great individual performances. The production as a whole was fine, but there were definitely some things that could have gone smoother. Technical issues primarily.